It was very stressful because I'm like, I have 19 kindergartners standing at the door, and then I have this 5-year-old over here who just threw up on himself, poor thing, and I have to clean this up and try to get these kids home before their parents worry. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, welcome to the family. I'm so happy to have you. Be sure to click that subscribe button down below just so that you don't miss any future videos. So in today's video, I will be sharing with you what my first year of teaching was like, just kind of my story and my experience. I will just be going through kind of how I got my first teaching job and the interview process, as well as just kind of the dynamics of my classroom, my overall experience. So this video is actually a collaboration with my dear friend Sara over at It's a Teacher's Life by Sara O. I will be sure to link her video in the description box below. So as soon as you're done with this video, be sure to go over and check her video out so that you can find out what her first year of teaching was like. So yes, I am on my front porch. It is a beautiful day out, and so I'm just kind of relaxing. I feel like I have been living in yoga pants and graphic tees, and this one I actually ordered off of another teacher's Instagram. She had some kind of Teespring link or something, and I don't know if it is available anymore, but if it is, I will be sure to link it down below as well. I honestly don't remember where I got it from, sorry, but I'm sure I can go back in my email and find the receipt for this, but it is super cute. The t-shirt is so soft and cozy, and I literally just wear this kind of stuff, especially when I'm at home. And I have some super exciting news coming up, so make sure you stay tuned and watch because I have a vlog coming out. I just had an interview on Friday, random, I know, because I was not planning on teaching this year. Be sure to keep checking back because I will have a vlog posted soon all about some things that I have been going through over this past week. So I kind of just wanted to go back and talk to you guys, especially if you are about to go into your first year of teaching and you really just don't know what to expect. Basically, I'm just going to share my experience with you, and hopefully that gives you some insight as to what it might be like your first year of teaching, and I don't know, just kind of ease some of those nerves, because going into your first year of teaching is incredibly nerve-wracking. You have no idea what to expect, and trust me, even if you did student teaching, it is still going to be a huge learning experience when you jump into the classroom on your own. So it is very exciting, but it also comes with a lot of challenges. So this video is all about just kind of sharing my experience to kind of help you out in those situations where you're just kind of like, what in the world? I have no idea what to expect. I'm so nervous. But let me just reassure you that everything works out how it's supposed to work out. Everything turns out fine, and as long as you learn to kind of take a deep breath, accept feedback from your teammates or parents or your principal without kind of getting down on yourself and working through some of those things, you will get through your first year of teaching. Okay, so I'm going to start off with kind of how I got my first teaching job. So between student teaching and graduating with my bachelor's degree, I was a long-term substitute. During that last month of the school year, I actually took over for a kindergarten teacher on maternity leave for the last month of school. And so that was kind of a really unique but powerful experience, because right after student teaching, I was basically thrown into a classroom all by myself for the entire last month of school, where I had to do report cards, I had to do cube folders. It was just a whirlwind, but I loved it. And so that was my first kind of on my own experience in a classroom. Once I got my bachelor's degree, I ended up staying another year to get my master's degree in curriculum and instruction. And during that time period, I worked for the Florida State University College of Education in the early childhood program, and I was also a substitute teacher. So I was continuously in a classroom setting or kind of surrounding myself with other student teachers who were in a classroom setting. I did not want to stay out of the classroom during grad school because I just didn't want to kind of lose anything that I kind of learned during my student teaching and during my time in the College of Ed. So I tried to stay in classrooms as much as I possibly could. So during this time, I decided to go ahead and start interviewing for the following school year, which would have been 2013 to 2014. I had a total of 3 interviews before I landed my first teaching job. I went on the district website and I just applied for pretty much all of the primary grade level jobs that there were within the district. I honestly don't remember how many there were. I want to say there were maybe 4 to 5. And then once I applied, I went to each individual school and I dropped off my resume packet. So I had had a cover letter, my resume, some letters of recommendation, and then a copy of my certificate. So I dropped that off at all of the schools. I think it's so important to hand deliver your resume if you can. A lot of times it'll just get you an interview, because for you to take the time to walk into the school and personally hand deliver your resume to whether it's the office staff, the assistant principal, or even the principal, it just makes a really good first impression. I do recommend as a first-year teacher that you do apply to as many schools as possible, because sometimes it is hard to land a job as a brand new teacher. Now, some schools look for that because they like to have new, innovative teachers in their schools who can bring new and fresh ideas. However, some other schools may be looking for some more seasoned or experienced teachers. And on top of that, you never know how your interview is going to go, and you want to make sure that you have a backup plan. So go ahead and apply to as many schools and as many grade levels as you can, depending on your certification, because you honestly just never know what is going to happen. So out of all of the schools that I turned in my resume to, I had 3 phone calls back. The first school that I interviewed at was a Title I school. It was also a K through 12 school. It was kind of out in a community, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and so it was a really tight-knit family community, and it was amazing. But when I first walked into that interview room, I about peed my pants, guys. It was so intimidating. I was so scared. I was shaking. I was sweating. I was just nervous. I just was a hot mess. So when I walked into that interview room, there was this huge conference table, and there were about 10 to 12 people in that room. And right straight across the table from me, at the other end of the table, was the principal, and he was not smiling. He was looking at me very stone-faced. What ended up happening is I cried in my interview. I cried. Yeah. So as soon as I walked out into the parking lot, I called my mom and I'm like, Mom, I know I didn't get that job because I cried. I felt so nervous and scared. It was like, I know I didn't get that job. And so she was like, you know what? Don't worry about it. That was your first interview. Don't even worry about a thing. Just go on to your next one. So a couple of days later, I had my second interview. By the way, the first one was for a first grade position. My second interview was for a third grade position. Now, I just am going to jump in and say that all of my experience up to this point was in kindergarten. My entire student teaching was in kindergarten. Most of my observations and everything were in kindergarten. And so third grade was not my first choice. So I interviewed for a third grade position at a school that I had substituted at a ton. So these people and the principal already knew me. However, I don't know, I just didn't come across as very confident in that second interview, and I knew that I didn't. The principal actually got up and left the interview room during my interview, just got up and left, which was kind of mind-blowing and kind of, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe she had a really important phone call or something. I'll just kind of give her the benefit of the doubt. But that was very interesting. So at the end of the interview, like during the last 2 minutes of the interview, she came back in the room and she said, okay, are we done answering all of the questions? And that was it. And I didn't get that position, which I kind of figured. So that was okay, because honestly, after that interview, I was kind of glad that I didn't get that particular position, because I don't know, I just don't think it would have been the best fit for me and the type of school that I wanted to be at. So about a week later, I went to my third interview. By this point, I was a little bit more confident because number one, it was for a kindergarten position. Number two, I knew kind of what to expect in an interview room. Both the first and second interviews were basically a room full of people. It was a panel of judges basically just drilling me with questions. So I kind of knew what to expect, and so I wasn't really as nervous because I started reading that a lot of interviewers are told to be stone-faced or not to show any emotion. And so I kind of just pretended like, you know, they were really, really nice people, and I'm sure that they were. I'm sure all of the teachers and the administrators were very friendly, but, you know, they kind of wanted to maintain their professionalism and all of that during the interview, so they didn't really show much emotion. So during my third interview, the one where I did end up getting my first teaching job, I walked into the room, and lo and behold, I had a panel of teachers and administrators, as well as some other staff members in there. Now, like I said, I was a little bit more confident. Let me just say that a few days before this, I had actually competed at a statewide pageant, a very well-known statewide pageant. I had competed and I got second runner-up out of 80 girls. And after the pageant, they said that my interview scores were completely just skyrocketing high. My interview scores are really what almost pushed me to win that pageant. So not only was this for a kindergarten position, which I had a lot of experience in, I also was confident in my interview skills at this point because I had just received wonderful feedback from an interview that I had just done. Granted, it wasn't for a teaching job, but it doesn't matter. It is all just about how you answer the questions, and if you answer them with confidence, it's not necessarily what you say. So going in with those and then having the 2 interviews prior to this, I just felt a lot more confident. And so going into the 3rd interview, I was like, you know what? I got this. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And if it's not, it's not. I'm just going to go in and try my best. And so that's what I did. So I still was very nervous. I'm sure my face was beet red. I was so hot and sweaty when I left there and shaking. And I just, yeah, it was, I don't do well with high pressure or high stress situations. I have come a long way since then because I have kind of put myself out there and made myself get into some uncomfortable situations so that it forces me to learn how to talk to people and be comfortable speaking with people, hence having a YouTube channel. So yeah, even though it was very nerve-wracking, I ended up just really pushing through and answering as best I could. I want to say the principal called me the next day, maybe 2 days later. We had traveled out of town to go see Chaz's family, and while we were gone, I received the phone call, and so as soon as we got back from our vacation, we started the whole process, and it was the best feeling. It was such a relief. I walked into my classroom and I was like, yes, this is awesome. It was so clean and fresh, and I just had so many ideas. Thank you, Pinterest. But I was just so excited to finally have a classroom of my own, and it just had so much potential, and I just saw how much I could do with this nice, lovely little room. Actually, it was a huge classroom. I was hired about the middle to the 3rd week of July in 2013. We had our teacher pre-planning week in the middle of August, so I had a few weeks to kind of get my classroom set up and organized. My principal did give me the keys early because I was a new teacher and a first-year teacher, and so she just kind of wanted to give me some extra time to get everything situated and figured out. I had no idea how I was going to set up centers or tables or anything like that, and so she was very, very kind and worked with me on how to kind of set up my room. She even came in and pushed around tables with me a few times and helped me move furniture in and out of my classroom just to make sure that it was going to work how I was hoping it would. Jumping into a classroom of your own for the very first time is like, ah, this is awesome and amazing, and it's the best feeling ever. So, and by the way, I am sitting on my front porch and people are probably looking at me like I am a crazy person, but that's okay. They're probably like, what is she doing? Now, granted, I do know my neighbors very well. We have a very tight-knit community, but it still feels a little awkward. And if you hear kids yelling, yeah, they're over there kind of playing outside. So, anywho, okay, so we had a little bit of a bike accident. My sweet girl fell off her bike, and so I just had to get up, and the sun is starting to go down a little bit, so I am sorry if the lighting is changing, but I'm just kind of gonna keep going where I left off. So basically, I had a really exciting experience when I first stepped into my classroom. I will go ahead and insert a picture of my first day of kindergarten as a teacher. I know, a little silly, but I had all of my kids use this picture frame that said my first day of kindergarten, and I figured why not take a picture in it when this is my first year in kindergarten as a teacher in my first year of teaching. So I thought that was really fun. All right, so kind of just giving you my year at a glance. I had 20 students in my class my first year of teaching. I taught kindergarten, general education. I had, I think it was 2 students who were on IEPs for speech, and then I did have a few students who were ESOL students. I had 2 students from India and 1 student of Hispanic descent. So I used a lot of visuals that first year of teaching, and I wasn't really great at it at the beginning. But the nice thing about being in kindergarten is that you use a lot of visuals and pictures anyways, and so that did make it easier. Now my second and third year of teaching, I got a little bit better at accommodating those ESOL students, but my first year of teaching, I just kind of did a little bit here and there just because I was still learning and there was so much going on that first year that it was just hard to kind of fit everything in. Okay, so this particular school was a blue ribbon school. It was an A+ school. It had a high level of parental involvement, and so it was just awesome. I have no idea what I did to deserve to be at a school like that my first year of teaching, but it was an amazing experience. My classroom was also completely covered in ladybugs. Not real ladybugs. Ladybugs was kind of my classroom theme, and so I had red and black and white and lime green as my colors in my classroom, and of course lots and lots of spots or polka dots, and so it was super duper cute. I did end up changing the tables around throughout the school year, and I grouped them together more, but you know, like I said, it took me a while to kind of figure everything out and what worked best in that space, just because I really didn't have any experience in that area. Basically what my day looked like was the students would come in the morning, we would have morning meeting, then we would have our 90-minute reading block. And during my first year of teaching, I taught the Imagine It curriculum. After reading, I believe it was writing and then lunch. Right after lunch, we had recess, and then the kids would come back in. We had, I believe it was an hour-and-a-half math block, and then we had a small amount of time for science and social studies. That particular school put a huge emphasis on reading, writing, and math, and so science and social studies kind of got the shorter end of the stick, unfortunately. I tried to put as much emphasis on it as I could, but it was towards the end of the day, and we kind of varied it, so I think I alternated science, social studies, science, or something like that throughout the week, so I didn't end up teaching science and social studies every single day. Also, during my first year of teaching, I was assigned a teacher mentor, so I had another teacher that was on my kindergarten team who served as my beginning teacher mentor, and so together we had to complete a beginning teachers program. Basically all it was she would have to come in and evaluate me and then provide me with feedback so that I could improve on my instruction or what have you. So once we did that, we submitted it to the district, and that was basically it. It was super easy peasy lemon squeezy, and that is just what our district did for all first year teachers, just to make sure that all of our questions were being answered, that we were getting good feedback from another grade level team member, and then just kind of reflecting on our year and how it went, maybe some things we would change, maybe some things that we thought went well. And so it was kind of just a learning experience for all first year teachers. It was not tied to our evaluations whatsoever. It was just kind of an extra piece that was meant to help us learn and grow as a teacher. So some things that I absolutely loved about my first year of teaching were that everyone was super supportive of me as a brand new teacher, and they really gave me a lot of help and feedback. And even when I had the craziest questions, and I'm sorry that Chief is barking, he sees another dog. I also had a super duper sweet class my first year. I thought 20 kids was quite a lot, and technically the cap was at 18 in our district, but I had 20, and so I felt that that was a little much. However, teaching 28 third graders this past year, 20 kindergartners was not so bad. I also felt like I was pretty organized during my first year of teaching, besides all of the paperwork, you guys. One major tip for those of you going into your first year of teaching is please develop some kind of paper organizing system so that you don't lose any of your papers, because there are so many things to keep track of that, yeah, that was probably my biggest struggle actually. So overall, I was very organized. I had everything labeled and all of those things, but the paperwork was such a struggle. Trying to keep everything organized as far as paperwork goes, that was very challenging. The biggest challenge that I had during my first year of teaching was trying to basically prove myself to parents as a brand new first year teacher, but I promise you guys can do it. I did it eventually, but I did it with a lot of confidence. I had the training. I knew that this was what I was meant to do, and I was up to date on what the best practices were in the classroom, and so I guess just being in your first year of teaching, you aren't necessarily super confident because it's your first year. And so just go in knowing that you have had the classes, you have had the training, you know what to do. It is still going to be a big learning experience for you. Now, I will say the most challenging part of my first year of teaching was my very first parent-teacher conference. It was the worst it probably could have ever been. I actually had, thankfully, the support of the principal also, and so yeah, it was horrible. And they do say that the first year of teaching either makes you or breaks you, and that particular parent-teacher conference almost broke me. Like, just that one experience, I really had to kind of change my mindset and say, you know what, that was one bad experience. I'm not going to let that parent ruin my whole teaching career. And so all it came down to was that one student in particular had some behavior issues, and it was affecting her learning and affecting her grades. And in our district, we gave letter grades in kindergarten. I know, crazy, right? However, her grades reflected her behavior and attentiveness in the classroom, and I had very calmly and gently brought it to her mother's attention and tried to collaborate with mom to try to figure out a solution for this so that she could reach her full learning potential. But it basically backfired, and it all came down to, you don't know how to manage your classroom, and her behavior is due to your lack of classroom management skills. My son goes to Vanderbilt, and so I know that she doesn't have any behavior issues because she comes from a good family. Like I said, I try to keep everything very positive, but my heart was like crushed. However, I just want to say that it doesn't matter if her older son goes to Vanderbilt, because those are two completely different children, and just because a student comes from a very successful family doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a perfect child. No child is perfect. It really backfired on me. And I think it all came down to me being a first-year teacher, and to her, I didn't really know what I was doing, even though I really did. And so I did get the support of the principal. The principal was on my side for the entire thing. And so she sat down with me and the parents at the parent-teacher conference and kind of smoothed things over. By the end of the school year, I got a 3-page apology note from the student's mother saying how sorry she was, that I really was a fabulous teacher for her child that year. And so the mom ended up realizing that I really did love and care about her child, and I really wanted to do what was best for her. But I think she kind of had to see through the fact that I was a first-year teacher. And so, yeah, that was my first parent-teacher conference ever. And so that was just really heartbreaking for me at that moment. I mean, I just remember crying the entire way home, bawling my eyes out. My eyes were all hot. I remember calling my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, just saying, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And of course, he calmed me down and just kind of helped me work through that. And I honestly think that that particular parent-teacher conference happened that way as my first conference in order to set me up for success for all of my other parent-teacher conferences from there on out. Now, I don't want to jinx anything, but I have not had a parent-teacher conference like that one since my very first conference, my very first year of teaching. Thank you, Lord, because that was just awful. I have learned how to talk to parents and how to address certain situations, because we all know that our main goal is to help the children be successful. And in order to do that, you need a lot of parental support and involvement in their child's education. It really makes things a whole lot easier. However, you know, you kind of have to learn that balance of not saying enough or saying too much. So yeah, that was kind of a struggle for me for a little while, but I did get the hang of it, I think. And so luckily I have not had any negative parent-teacher conferences, knock on wood, since then. So let's keep it that way. Other than that though, the year was amazing. It did have its challenges and it was hard work, but again, I kind of just took every experience as a learning experience. I remember, I think I had only been teaching about a week or so. I had this little boy. We were all lined up, ready to go home. And I think I might have shared this story before. We were all at the door, ready to go home, ready for dismissal. And this little boy, sweet as pie, poor thing, just threw up all over. He tried to make it to the bathroom or the trash can or something, and just it was all over. It went all over his backpack and his shoes, and the bell rang and the kids were like, what do we do? And yeah, that was a little chaotic, but I just told the kids, It's okay. He wasn't feeling good. Everything's okay. I need you guys to do your job and stay by the door while I take care of this little one. The kids did their part so that I could do my part. And yeah, I think I handled it pretty well. It was very stressful because I'm like, I have 19 kindergartners standing at the door. And then I have this 5-year-old over here who just threw up on himself, poor thing. And I have to clean this up and try to get these kids home before their parents worry. So it was just kind of chaotic, but we tried to remain as calm as possible and kind of get through that. So you never know what to expect your first year of teaching. Honestly, I didn't really have that many crazy experiences besides the one little boy getting sick. I did have one student who was a very eccentric child and very, very fun to talk to and just had a really, really big imagination. But I remember us walking down the hallway. We had an outdoor school, so all of our hallways were outside. And so he was walking down the hallway, or outside on the sidewalk, and he said to me, "Teacher, I wish I was part of a cloud." Just the most bizarre thing. So my first year of teaching, I didn't write any of those things down, and I really, really wish I would have. I started writing things down later on into my second and third year of teaching because I wanted to remember those hilarious and funny or just really memorable moments. So yeah, if you are going into your first year of teaching, I highly recommend you start writing down just any little things that happen because you will want to remember them later, whether they were good or bad. But overall, I had an amazing experience as a first year teacher, and I really couldn't have asked for a better first year, honestly. I got really, really lucky, and I'm so grateful for that. So even though I did not have a perfect first year of teaching, I did have a pretty good one. Like I said, I got really, really lucky. Even though there were a couple of struggles along the way, I knew that it was what I wanted to do long term. So I did decide to stay in kindergarten the following year. I ended up teaching kindergarten for 3 years, and then I ended up moving over the summer after my third year of teaching to South Dakota and taught third grade last year. This year could possibly be my 5th year of teaching. Like I said, stay tuned for that because I do have a ton of details coming up on that. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, just so that you don't miss any future videos, because I promise you will not want to miss what's coming up next. Also, be sure to go check out Sarah's video on her channel. She is amazing and has a lot of great ideas for teachers. She has such a sweet personality, so make sure to go check her out and subscribe to her channel as well. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!